Can the Chicago Bulls keep up their winning ways when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight? We're going to talk a little bit about that game. We're also going to look at where the Bulls sitting right now in the ninth seed in the Eastern Conference and what are their chances to hold on to that seeding. We're also going to talk about why Coby White and his ascension must continue, not only for this season, but for the front office to really kind of move on and really kind of forge a new roster going forward. All that plus the mailbag and it's episode 1000. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this day 1000. This is episode 1000. 1,000 straight days of Chicago Bulls Central posting content. That's new content. It's crazy. It's crazy. It really is an accomplishment. And to celebrate it tonight, we're going to have a live stream as we always do before the game, but it's not going to be as much of a pregame as it's going to be kind of a celebration of you guys, where the show's gone. We're going to have all the Chi-Town Sports Central hosts on it as well. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that. But let's go ahead and get into this content. So the Chicago Bulls currently sit right now at the ninth seed with 23 games left to go on the season. And it seems likely that the Bulls are finished there. Yes, the Atlanta Hawks, they've won some games, right? You really want to look at that. They've, especially after Trae Young went down, they won 2 games. They've lost 2 games so far in that stretch. But that separation between them is still only 2 games between the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the thing that makes it seem like the Bulls are really going to have a strong chance of holding on to this ninth seed, or at least a play-in spot, is that the Brooklyn Nets, the team that's currently right outside the play-in at number 11, is 5.5 games behind the Chicago Bulls right now. And then they are 3.5 games behind the Atlanta Hawks to try to jump them for the 10th seed. There's still plenty of games to go. Like I said, 23 games left to go. The Chicago Bulls on that have the 23rd hardest, the most difficult schedule in the league. So it doesn't really, it says the 23rd hardest, but this next up stretch for the Bulls is really going to determine what that looks like, because while, the Bulls have, that's based off win percentage, and the Bulls do have some games in there, against teams with a weaker win percentage. We know that this, between now and March, it's a murderer's row for the Chicago Bulls. That's kind of how I keep labeling it. They play a lot of the play-in and playoff teams, a lot of teams above 500 over this stretch. We got Milwaukee today, for example. Then we got Sacramento, Utah, Golden State, Clippers, Dallas, Indiana. Those are all in a row. That takes us until March 14th, where we play the Clippers again. So this next up stretch is really, really difficult for the Bulls, despite how easy their schedule is according to strength of schedule remaining on the season. And that's going to be what tells a lot for the Chicago Bulls. We talked about it. You guys, daily listeners here, you already know what's coming with that. And so the thing about the Bulls and why them finishing at the 9th seed makes it a little bit different for the Bulls than last postseason is that the Bulls finished as the 10th seed last year, right? And as the 10th seed, you got to go out on the road. The Bulls will then host the 10th seed if they can hold on to that 9th seed. And then, not to say that's going to change a whole hell of a lot. I mean, it's good for the people in the United Center that can get there to definitely make sure that you can get see your team get that opportunity and play. But then, what happens at that point? The 7th and 8th seed face each other. The Bulls, if they were able to win their game, they face the winner between that. And then they'll go on to face the 8th seed. I mean, the 1 seed in the playoffs, which brings its own level of doubt of how the Bulls can compete with the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? Right now, the Bulls have 11 games remaining at home on their schedule, and 12 of the games are on the road. And so that's going to be, the Bulls have, it's about 50-50, right? So, if we would have had this conversation before last game, it would have been 12-12 as far as games on the road, games at home. So this stretch is important for the Bulls. And so, the Bulls have a better chance than not as far as making the play-in tournament, right? So they're in a pole position in that case. They don't have they have like a 9% chance to make it out the first round. So that we're not expecting that to happen. But it just comes down to, what is this team still fighting for over the back half of the season? And I think there are all a couple of things that we want to look at when it comes down to it, right? Not only do you want to see how the Bulls are going to fare against some of these better teams and see the continued development from players like Coby and Io, continued emergence from players like Dalen Terry, Onuralp Bitim, Julian Phillips, right? You want to see those things continue, definitely for the Chicago Bulls. And in a second, we're going to talk about why those players continue to play well and keeping up that pace can really change what the outlook of this offseason looks like for the Chicago Bulls. And so, that's really kind of what we're looking for, right? Growth, development, the wins come, right? And I don't think it's the worst case scenario if the Bulls were to get eliminated from the play-in or not make the play-in. Yeah, it's going to suck covering the team, right, and not being able to talk about your team winning games, but in the sense that in the grand scheme of things, this team trying to add talent to it, it's not the worst case scenario is what I'll say, especially with how everything has gone. When you look at the story that has become the Chicago Bulls, right? The Zach LaVine injury, the trade request, right? Torrey Craig being, missing so many games. I think he's almost missed 30 games at this point, right? On an 82-game season. Patrick Williams going down with the season in the injury. Of course, Lonzo Ball, we already knew he was going to be out. But all those things happening around the Chicago Bulls team, I still think, yeah, it sucks where we are because we could have been, way better than this, had some things gone differently, had the front office been more aggressive at times. Completely understand that, can never take away from that. But, the emergence of Coby and Ayo just really showing what they can be, kind of reinvigorating kind of that faith in what their potential is, I think it's been a big part of it. And that kind of leads us to our next topic, right? Coby White, and I'm going to talk about other players in this as well, but he's in the middle of a slump right now. And we talked about over on Locked On Bulls, and we asked the question, will this slump prevent Coby White from bringing the most improved player conversation? We had that conversation over there. I'm not necessarily bringing that back over here, but I do think that Coby White's adjustment to the slump and adjustment to defenses and how they're guarding them is going to be an important part to what this front office is going to try to do this offseason. Not only Coby White, though. I'm going to take it outside of it. Yes, Coby continuing to prove how well he can play. The fact that he is a building piece, which I'm not doubting what Coby has done this season. I do think he's hit a wall. As much as he says the minutes haven't gotten to him, I think by watching him in the eye test, you can see that Haize, as well as defense, is adjusting to him. But Coby White is a dog. And Coby White has gone into every offseason and owned his own development as far as getting to the place that he is now. So I trust that Coby White, whether it's working on his conditioning or whatever it is, he now realizes, hey, this is a different type of beast. Being on a team with these level of injuries, they got to play these many minutes. But then on top of now teams are actually like they're game planning to take the ball out of Coby White's hands. So I think Coby is going to work with his training staff. He's done that every season. He's added something to his game every offseason. I think that he's going to do that. The levels and degrees of that are going to be differentiating as well. But then you also have to look at Ayo and the other young players. Ayo, who's come on a lot more consistently here recently. Yeah, he's had a couple of down games. That happens. But Ayo's growth is also legit. I don't doubt the growth that Ayo Dosunmu has made. The bigger conversation around Ayo is like, can he be a starter going forward? Is he going to be a high-level bench player? What is that going to be? But it'd be remiss to not understand the two-way versatility that Ayo Dosunmu is bringing to the Chicago Bulls team, and also the fact that his scoring is just becoming a legit weapon. Ayo Dosunmu is taking 3.5 3-pointers per game. That is an extra 3 higher than anything he's taken in his career, and he's also shooting it at the highest percentage of over 40% on the season. He's also shooting the ball 49% from the field overall, and he's just growing and developing in amazing ways, and you love to see how Ayo Dosunmu has grown this season. Even when you look at it as a starter, right? He's stepped up even there as a starter. 18 games started so far for Ayo. He's averaging basically 14 points per game on 49% shooting and 44% from three-point range, taking 5.5 3-pointers per game as a starter. Still getting 4 assists, almost 4 rebounds, right under a block per game, and a steal and a half per game. Ayo Dosunmu's numbers show a player that when the role is increased and what you ask more of him, he thrives in that as well. And then you have the players that have flashed things, right? Not necessarily showing it consistently, but have flashed some things in Dalen and Julian Phillips. Yes, Ernalot Batim, I do want to mention him in this one, but mainly just because it's been one game. That's why I'm not going to focus heavily on it. Let's see how he finishes the season. But this young core players, right? Those, 5 players that I just named, and Coby, Ayo, Dalen, Julian, and Ernalot, right? Those 5 guys showing and proving what they can be over this last half of the season and being a piece that the front office can look at and say, these are players that are going to get minutes on this team, can drastically change what the outlook of this offseason is for the Chicago Bulls in a couple of different ways. The Bulls right now are slated to have about $16 million in practical cap space. Now, that's determined by cap holds, players resigning, things like that. It can get up to $38 million in cap space. That's assuming all options are declined and all free agents are renounced. Now, We know that $38 million is probably not going to happen. I don't see the Bulls renouncing rights to Patrick Williams. They may not renounce rights to DeMar DeRozan until he's signed with another team, or they re-sign him just because they may want to hold on to that ability to have a sign and trade. We'll see what's going on with Andre Drummond. We also got a draft pick coming in that's going to be probably a lottery level pick, right? So those things, the cap space that the Bulls have isn't plentiful. And because of that, seeing these young players make big steps between now and then are going to be a big part of seeing how much this front office has to be aggressive in trying to attract free agents. We may very well see that scenario if these young players have shown, hey, we got something here. We just need to invest more in their development than what we have so that they can play more, and then we can cultivate those skills a little bit more. So if these young players keep playing and Coby White keeps excelling and shows that adjustment, because the one thing you don't want to give AK and Eversley is any excuse to say we absolutely need to bring DeMar DeRozan back. Now, if they can come to a contract extension that's team-friendly, cool. That's one thing. I'm not saying that you just have to jettison DeMar DeRozan out. Not saying that at all either. But you want to make sure that the base, this foundation of young talent that we have, and you can throw in that as well, Adama Sanogo and Henry Drell on two-way contracts also. But if you have a core of young players all between 20 and 24 years old, right, are most of these young players that we're talking about, if you have a base of that they are playing roles for you and playing solidly in those roles, how many wins may come in that? That may be a byproduct. Also, the Chicago Bulls may be motivated to do that when you pair that, the cap situation, also with the fact that our pick next season, next offseason, 2025 draft pick, is owed to the San Antonio Spurs if it is not in the top 10. So all that breeds is this. Young players stepping up and showing that the Bulls can trust them playing them, right? And not have to rely on these aging veterans and not in a position where we just absolutely have to bring back DeMar or then they're overpaying for it. It can help put the Bulls in a better short-term, maybe in a little bit worse as far as wins, but the short-term and long-term projections for that definitely get better, right? Decisions got to be made. Patrick Williams is also a player that I didn't mention in that, mainly because he's injured and you have to pay him this offseason. So you can add Pat, even that to that list of young players that between 20 and 24 that I've mentioned before as well. So the Bulls have these young pieces, and I think it's time, hopefully now with the injuries and things like that, we get extended looks at these guys, and that can maybe eliminate some of those excuses by the front office. Now, in that cap projection that I gave, it said all in the $38 million, that's assuming all options are declined. One player that does have a player option that's likely to be picked up is Lonzo Ball, right? And this is the last time I'm going to talk about Lonzo until we get a medical update on him, right? And I'm talking about it in the framework of this conversation for the cap space and also what has recently came out about his injury, right? The Bulls, in my opinion, have to operate under the assumption that Lonzo Ball is not going to come back. That's it. I know there was some expectation and hope that Lonzo Ball would be ready to go by the start of the 24-25 season. But when you think about the setback and the thing that you have and the questions around that, to me, you cannot risk that. And Lonzo's going to pick up that option. If you can eliminate that $20 million contract, which is still, I think, the best for business, you have to do that to put yourself in a better situation. Keep in mind, the surgery that Lonzo Ball had, he would be the first professional athlete to return playing following that surgery. That's it. And so you're asking for something to be on the right side of history for something that historically has told you players just don't come back from this injury at all. And then so even if he is setting that tone, you can't expect him to be a big part of your roster. So when you're also looking at that, the Bulls really got some tough decisions to make this offseason. DeMar. Is the play? Are teams calling on Alex Caruso this offseason? Are teams still calling on Zach LaVine? That's another piece that I've kind of haven't talked about a lot. And then your own draft pick, right? What do you do at that draft? There's tons of things that's ahead of the Chicago Bulls right now that they got to try to figure out. And I don't envy the position that they are in at all. So those are kind of my thoughts on that. You guys can let me know what you think on all that down below. Now, we got to still preview the game tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks, but before we get into that preview, I got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that's Aura. I'm sure most of you know anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name and personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. For me, personally, I never took this kind of stuff seriously, that people can take my personal data and use it for their own financial gain. Well, in 2019, I got my identity stolen, including my social security number and credit card information. And it was a total nightmare getting it all sorted out. From recouping loans that were taken out in my name and shopping sprees on my credit card, there are some really bad people out there, and it's sad to say, but it's true. Do a Google search for your personal information or someone you know and see if a people search site shows up. The information is easily accessible because of data brokers who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And so for me, protecting my and my family's personal data and information is at the utmost importance because of the terrible experience I had 4 years ago. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They will even opt out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they're involved in any data breach and exposed on the dark web. Aura's app also features VPN password manager, real-time credit card and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app, which is what makes it so amazing, so that you don't have to use multiple platforms and sites to protect yourself. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much your private information Aura finds exposed over 2 weeks. I was shocked at how much my information Aura was able to find when I was using the app. Go to aura.com/CBC to start your free trial. Also linked in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now back to the video. All right, y'all. So the Bulls take on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. And this is a team that, listen, we've beat at one point this season, right? We've played well with them, but you don't want to come into this Milwaukee Bucks team lacking. Now, the way that the heart that the Bulls played in that last game against the Cleveland Cavaliers was great. Now, it's hard to keep that up every single game, right? But the Milwaukee Bucks are coming in here as the second best offense in the league at 121 points per game. They also take the fifth most, three-pointers in the league per game, and they hit that at a decent enough percentage to where they are still top 10 in three-point shooting percentage as well. What does that mean? The Bulls' simple math problem of not being able to shoot three-pointers themselves, make three-pointers, is going to be evident in this. Also, how do you defend that three-point line? I'm not putting everything on a Lapa team, not doing that. But if you can get Coby shooting effectively, Io shooting effectively, Alex Caruso is listed as questionable if he comes back and shoots at his 40%, and then you also get the team and other players to step in as well. I'm not saying that we can match wits three-point wise with the Milwaukee Bucks, but hopefully we can keep pace with them enough to where it's not creating this huge separation where it's insurmountable. That's what the Bulls are going to have to do with that three-point shooting and the offense of the Milwaukee Bucks, but play solid defense throughout, right? And yes, nobody on this roster can stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's really not anybody in the league who can stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. You just hope that you're going to be able to do enough to slow the man down. And can the Bulls do that, right? Can they play well enough, especially on that perimeter defense? That's where I think the key is going to be for the Chicago Bulls. So players like Coby, who do give up a lot defensively as far as effort, Io DeSumo, Alex Caruso, if he plays, these are all going to be important for the Chicago Bulls to play that solid perimeter defense and kind of make Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and Giannis beat you. And now, don't get me wrong, the Bucks have beat us before relying on those players, but that's going to have to be a key for the Chicago Bulls in this as well. And the glass, you have to try to rebound. Again, 75 rebounds is not something you can expect again from the Chicago Bulls, but you got to keep pace with the Milwaukee Bucks that are also top 12 in the league in rebounds per game. Now, the Bulls are only a couple of steps down from them, so that rebounding battle I think is going to be really important as well. And we already know the Milwaukee Bucks are not a good defense, right? They're bottom 10 in the league in defense. So that is something, if you play efficiently, that you can come in here and have that success against the Milwaukee Bucks. They're also turnover prone. So we know when this team gets turnovers and get out in transition, it's a different game. It's almost a different team entirely when you're seeing this team be able to do that. So you want to be able to control those things for the Chicago Bulls in this game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And, hey, maybe you can shock the world again. We'll be here covering it on the pregame, halftime hangout, and postgame shows, all live on the channel. It's a late game as well, 9 p.m. Chicago start time on this game. So you guys can come in and hang out late with Haize on this game. Now, with that said, moving on from that, we do got a voicemail that I want to play. The mailbag's been filling up. Tomorrow's mailbag day, where we'll catch up on a lot of it. We got one voicemail today. This one's from T'Challa.
This your boy T'Challa, the motherfucking savior again. Another thing I wanted to add with the whole competitive context that a lot of people not seeing because it's going way over y'all heads. The thing is with the competitiveness, basically what he means with that, obviously you can see it in what we have. He means competitiveness from our young guys because he knows that our old guys is nothing but trade assets for the future. So he want our young guys to basically be competitive, and the guys that we probably would least expect, like a Dalen Terry, to really compete and show us some stuff. Julian Phillips, Adonis Anago eventually, and Batum, so it's from that aspect. That's it, that's all. We have a lot of injuries and all this other stuff. He's not looking for our team to actually be competitive in the sense of we gonna knock somebody else in the playoffs or even we gonna win a fucking play-in game. No, and that will show more growth. But he means competitiveness as in growth. So the thing is, we have to utilize our veteran assets to get more draft assets, and that's the biggest thing. We don't need no really proven players and stuff like that because we have to go into a minor rebuild, and build around these young guys. So the thing is, and that's what it is, and that's not going to change. We fucked from being an actual competitive team right now. So that's what it is, man. Had to lay it upon you guys, man. And another thing, our team, we need a forward and an explosive big man. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we got to do. That's what we got to get in the draft. We need an explosive big man who a rim protector. You know what I'm saying? Got a nice offensive prowess like that kid Filipowski. I've been checking him out that you've been talking about. We need him. So we in draft position to even get a player like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we got to do. We got to look for the future. We're going to be bad for a few years until we good. So that's what's going to happen. But we actually in a real good position. We're going to get a lot for Zach. We're going to get.
All right, T'Challa, I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. Like, if we were using vets to get draft assets, we would have traded them at the trade deadline rather than wait to their unrestricted free agents where we can't get anything back for them. Like, this is the problem when you try to sound smart and you talk yourself into a dumbass corner. And I'm not calling you a dumbass. I'm saying the conversation on this is a dumbass conversation. To say that the veterans are here to gain assets, well, brother, if we were here to use the veterans to get assets, then we would have moved them when their value was at its highest. Andre Drummond, unrestricted free agent this offseason. DeMar DeRozan, unrestricted free agent at the end of this offseason, right? I mean, at the end of this season. Those aren't guys that you can then trade to get assets back. You just can't do it. Now, you can maybe hope for a signing trade, but that's a hope. That's in the control of the other team. And typically you don't get a lot back in a signing trade because, again, the other team is truly the ones in control at that time. So I don't know, like, nothing that you said makes sense in practicality at all in this specific topic. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. So, again, as I said with your voicemail yesterday, you are trying to rationalize something because you already have a predetermined outcome that you're trying to make be the truth rather than letting the facts guide you to what the truth is. No, the Bulls aren't using these veterans to gain assets. What the hell are you talking about? Like, that's just not fundamentally true to what we see. If that was the case, we would have saw Alex Caruso move for the 2 first-round picks. We would have saw Andre Drummond move for the 3 second-round picks or 2, depending on what report that you heard. We would have seen the Bulls move on from DeMar DeRozan to try to get something back rather than losing for nothing in the offseason. That right there, you're looking at adding 5 to 6 draft picks back to a team that can definitely use them and gave up a lot of draft picks to build this team up. But that's not the reality that we live in. Now, the Zach LaVine piece is still there, but Zach LaVine's value is going to be all but nothing until he shows and proves he can stay healthy and contribute to winning. I don't expect the Bulls to move Zach LaVine this offseason unless they're willing to take a hit on the deal. Nikola Vucevic, we know Vuce isn't going anywhere. That's another veteran on this team. Vuce isn't going anywhere unless we're giving up a young piece or giving up a draft pick to send him out. Again, you're not getting assets in that case. T'Challa, bro, like I said yesterday, you got to be more intelligent in what you're trying to push here, bro. Like, you can push your narrative. Say, hey, I trust this front office. I believe in what this front office is doing. I think we're going to come out on the other side of that better, but don't try to make some narrative or make sense out of nonsense. You can't make sense out of nonsense. And that's what you're trying to do right now, brother. And honestly, I really hope that as hard as you go for AK in the front office, that you go hard for that you have somebody going hard in life for you. Because listen, you ride hard for them. That's not even no hate. That's just being real. Come on, man. What are we doing, bro? What are we doing? It's episode 1000, man. We got to spend our time on better shit than this, man. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.